Nobody told me travel could feel this lonely. When I dreamed about Europe, I imagined adventure. I imagined beautiful cities. I imagined meeting new people. I imagined making unforgettable memories. What I didn't imagine was sitting alone in a crowded place feeling completely disconnected. And that's exactly what happened. The strange thing was that I was surrounded by people, tourists, locals, busy streets, busy cafes, yet somehow, I had never felt more alone. For a while, I thought something was wrong with me. Wasn't this supposed to be the trip of a lifetime? Why wasn't I enjoying every moment? In this video, I'll share the loneliest moment of my Europe trip, what caused it, and the lesson it taught me about travel, expectations, and human connection. Chapter 1. The trip I couldn't wait to take. Before my trip to Europe, loneliness was the last thing on my mind. If anything, I expected the exact opposite. I imagined myself exploring incredible cities, meeting interesting people, trying new foods, having experiences I'd remember for the rest of my life. And when the trip finally arrived, it felt like a dream coming true. After months of planning and anticipation, I was finally there, walking through places I had only seen in photos, seeing famous landmarks with my own eyes, hearing different languages everywhere I went. At first, everything felt exciting. Every street felt new, every train ride felt like part of an adventure. Every day felt full of possibilities. I remember thinking, this is exactly what I've been waiting for. And honestly, for a while, it was. The trip was everything I hoped it would be. But looking back now, I think I carried one expectation with me that I didn't even realize I had. I assumed that because I was in Europe, I would automatically feel connected. Connected to the places, connected to the experience, connected to the people around me. I thought being surrounded by new sights and new opportunities would naturally make me feel fulfilled. But travel doesn't automatically create connection. And eventually, I was about to learn that the hard way. Because in the next chapter, something started happening that completely caught me off guard. Even though I was surrounded by people every day, I started feeling more isolated than I expected. Chapter 2. Surrounded by people, but feeling alone. At first, the feeling was easy to ignore. It would show up in small moments. A quiet train ride, a meal by myself, a walk through a busy street. Nothing dramatic, nothing that seemed important. But little by little, those moments started adding up. During the day, I was surrounded by people. Tourists taking photos, friends laughing together, couples exploring the city, groups sharing experiences. And I started noticing something. Everyone seemed to have someone to share the moment with. Someone to talk to, someone to laugh with, someone to turn to and say, "Can you believe we're actually here?" And while I was happy to be traveling, there were moments when I wished I had that too. The strange thing was that I didn't expect to feel this way. Before the trip, I had focused on the destinations, the attractions, the experiences. I had spent almost no time thinking about the emotional side of travel. What it would feel like to spend so much time alone with my own thoughts. What it would feel like to experience incredible moments and have nobody who truly understood the journey with me. And that's when the loneliness started becoming harder to ignore. Not because I was physically alone, but because I felt disconnected. Disconnected from the people around me. Disconnected from the version of the trip I had imagined. And the more I tried to push those feelings away, the stronger they seemed to become. Eventually, I reached a moment that forced me to confront what I was really feeling. And in the next chapter, I'll tell you about the loneliest moment of my entire Europe trip and the realization that came with it. Chapter 3. The loneliest moment of my Europe trip. There was one moment during the trip that stands out more than any other. I wasn't lost. Nothing had gone wrong. I wasn't dealing with some travel disaster. In fact, I was in a beautiful place. The kind of place people dream about visiting. People were everywhere, taking photos, talking, laughing, enjoying the moment, and yet, I felt completely alone. I remember sitting there and looking around, wondering why I felt so disconnected. This was supposed to be one of the happiest experiences of my life. So why did it feel so empty in that moment? The more I thought about it, the more frustrated I became. I started asking myself questions I didn't have answers to. What's wrong with me? Why am I feeling this way? Shouldn't I be enjoying this more? And the harder I tried to force myself to feel happy, the worse it became. Because now I wasn't just lonely. I was also judging myself for being lonely. That's when something important happened. For the first time, I stopped trying to fight the feeling. I stopped pretending it wasn't there. I stopped telling myself that I shouldn't feel this way. And instead, I simply acknowledged it. I admitted to myself that I felt lonely. That I missed familiar faces. That I missed real connection. That traveling to an incredible destination didn't automatically remove those human needs. And strangely enough, the moment I accepted what I was feeling, the loneliness started losing some of its power. Because I realized something that changed the rest of the trip. There was nothing wrong with me. I wasn't failing at travel. I was having a normal human experience. And in the next chapter, I'll share the realization that completely changed the way I looked at loneliness, travel, and connection. Chapter 4. The realization that changed everything. The turning point came when I stopped asking the wrong question. Up until that point, I had been asking, how do I stop feeling lonely? But eventually, I started asking something different. Why am I so afraid of feeling lonely? That question changed everything. Because the truth was, I had been treating loneliness like a problem that needed to be fixed immediately. Something to avoid, something to escape, something that shouldn't happen on a dream trip. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that loneliness wasn't the real problem. The real problem was the story I was telling myself about it. I had convinced myself that feeling lonely meant something was wrong. That I wasn't enjoying the trip enough. That I was somehow failing at this experience. But none of those things were true. Loneliness wasn't proof that the trip was bad. It wasn't proof that I had made a mistake. It was simply proof that I was human. And once I accepted that, something surprising happened. I stopped fighting the feeling. I stopped judging myself. I stopped trying to force every moment to feel amazing. And instead, I became more present. I started paying attention to the people around me, the conversations I could have, the experiences I was having, the places I was exploring. Not because I was trying to eliminate loneliness, but because I was finally allowing myself to fully experience the journey. Ironically, the moment I stopped obsessing over feeling alone, I started feeling more connected. Connected to the places I was visiting. Connected to the people I met. Connected to the experience itself. And that's when I realized something I'll never forget. Connection isn't something that automatically appears when you travel. It's something you create when you're open to the experience. That realization changed the rest of my trip. And in the next chapter, I'll share the lesson I brought home from Europe and why I believe every traveler should hear it before their first big adventure. Chapter 5. The lesson I brought home from Europe. Looking back now, I think one of the biggest misconceptions about travel is that it's supposed to make us feel connected all the time. But that's not how real life works. And it's not how travel works either. The lesson Europe taught me was much simpler than that. Connection isn't something a destination gives you. It's something you build. Before this trip, I believed that being surrounded by beautiful places and interesting people would automatically make me feel fulfilled. But fulfillment doesn't work that way. You can stand in the middle of the most famous city in the world and still feel lonely. And you can be sitting with one meaningful connection and feel completely at home. What changed everything for me wasn't finding the perfect destination. It wasn't finding the perfect experience. It was learning to stop running from uncomfortable emotions. Because the moment I accepted that loneliness was part of the journey, I stopped seeing it as an enemy. Instead, I started seeing it as a teacher. It taught me how much I valued genuine connection. It taught me the importance of being present. It taught me that some of the most meaningful moments in life happen when we're honest about how we're feeling. And strangely enough, once I stopped fighting loneliness, I became more open, more aware, more appreciative, not just of the places I visited, but of the people I met and the experiences I was having. Today, when I look back on that trip, I don't remember the loneliness as a negative thing. I remember it as one of the most important lessons I learned. Because it reminded me that travel isn't just about exploring new places. Sometimes it's about understanding yourself a little better. And sometimes the moments we least expect to matter end up teaching us the most. That lesson stayed with me long after I left Europe. And honestly, it's a lesson I still carry with me today. Ending. The side of travel nobody talks about. When people talk about travel, they usually talk about the highlights. The landmarks, the food, the adventures, the incredible photos. And those things are part of the experience. But they're not the whole experience. What people don't always talk about are the quiet moments. The difficult moments. The moments where you feel uncertain, disconnected, or alone. And that's why I wanted to share this story. Because if you've ever felt lonely while traveling, or even lonely in everyday life, I want you to know that you're not the only one. Feeling lonely doesn't mean you've failed. It doesn't mean the experience is ruined. And it doesn't mean something is wrong. Sometimes it's simply part of being human. For me, the loneliest moment of my Europe trip became one of the most valuable lessons of the entire journey. Not because it was enjoyable, but because it taught me something important. It taught me that connection isn't something we find by changing locations. It's something we build by staying open to people, experiences, and even our own emotions. Looking back now, I'm grateful for that lesson. Because it changed the way I travel, and in many ways, it changed the way I look at life. So if you're planning your first big trip, or chasing a dream you've had for years, remember this. The goal isn't to have a perfect experience. The goal is to have a real one. Because the real experiences are often the ones that stay with us the longest. I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever felt lonely while traveling or during a major life experience? Share your story in the comments. And if you enjoy honest travel stories, real travel lessons, and the side of travel that people rarely talk about, make sure you subscribe and join me for the next adventure. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.